G'day, Lemon Eating Cow here, and today I am back talking about episode Ardyn, and more specifically, I wanted to give my personal opinions on whether or not I think the DLC is worth a purchase. I'll try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, apart from the very general gameplay in the background. So if you didn't know already, episode Ardyn is the final piece of DLC for Final Fantasy 15, and it should be available worldwide on the PS4, the Xbox One, and the Steam store right now. In the United States, it will cost you 10 American dollars. In United Kingdom, it will cost you 8 British pounds. In Germany, Germany and Europe, it will cost you around about 10 euro. And here in Australia, it costs 15 Australian dollars. So a major question people have after cost is how long does the actual DLC go for? Well, we did stream it here on the channel the other day, and my official end game time was 1 hour and 48 minutes. Now, we didn't go too fast or too slow on this playthrough, and there was one point where I had to complete 7 different objectives, but I only cleared 3 of them, and that was enough to let me progress with the story. If I was to have taken or undertaken those other 4 objectives, I would estimate it would add anywhere from half an hour to an hour onto that part of the game. Also, you can chase after a bunch of collectibles and different accessories at this point too, and if you went after all those, it could again add on another half hour to an hour to the game. There is also 2 different endings in the game, so depending on where you save last, this could either add anywhere from 15 minutes to another half hour onto the game as well. Then once you have finished the game, you unlock an additional mode, which is much like the versus mode from episode Ignis. And if you're just going into this to have a little bit of a look around, it'll take you probably about 15 minutes. But if you really wanted to master this mode, I could see it taking anywhere upwards of an hour. So modestly, I would say the average player would probably spend around about 3 hours in this DLC. So relative to another form of entertainment, movies, I think this DLC is worth the purchase. Here in Australia, you can pay anywhere from $15 all the way up to $25 for a standard movie ticket. And these movies generally go from, like an hour and a half to 3 hours. So if you're looking at it in just relation to a movie ticket, I think the cost is justified there. And that's even before we've talked about the story, the lore, the gameplay, or the general feel of the DLC. So as far as the story goes, I don't really want to go into details too much about the specifics of it because I want to avoid spoilers as much as I can, but I really did enjoy the story and the pacing of this DLC. I think they gave you a heap of voice acted segments and little cutscenes and cinematics, and it really drew me in, and it really opened up a lot about the character of Ardyn. If you are a fan of Ardyn, obviously it is episode Ardyn, but it does really make you appreciate the character. And for someone like me that didn't really like, Ardyn was okay, but he wasn't, the best villain ever. I absolutely adore his English voice actor, Darren DePaul, but otherwise I thought, Ardyn, whatever. But after seeing this, I really like Ardyn's character. Actually, it does go into some really great story points, and it has a way of humanifying, I think that's a word, giving Ardyn some humanity. So I think the storytelling in this is actually really well done. There is a point later on that I know a lot of other people that I've talked to, there was a point of confusion of whether or not Ardyn is actually in disguise or not. When I initially played through the game, I didn't really get it, and I had to go back and look at it. But apart from that, I think it's a pretty well-presented story, and it's a nice little neat package that fits well into the Final Fantasy 15 universe. Something that surprised me here is that there is quite a rich amount of lore in the game too. In an early section of the game, you're actually given a bit of a free roam of this room that has been set up for you, and there's quite a few journal entries, and there's a lot of art and things that you can look around the room, and it gives you a lot of history on the cosmogony and other events that have happened around the world of Final Fantasy 15. So this was a really unexpected surprise, and while I didn't touch much of it on the stream, there is a lot of lore here, and a lot of it is voiced as well. So it seems they have put quite a bit of effort into filling out the gaps in the lore here and there. So really commendable. So on the subject of voice acting here is fantastic. really. Although sometimes it can be very, very melodramatic and over the top, it is quite well done. And like I said before, Darren DePaul has just a buttery, amazing, rumbly voice, and I absolutely love it. So it was a pleasure seeing him voice Ardyn again, and it'll be a shame knowing that he won't be doing Ardyn anytime in the future, which is probably the saddest thing of this whole episode. The actual presentation of the whole DLC has been pretty good. They have worked on some brand new character models for it and some new assets, which is nice to see. There is a lot of recycled stuff in here, of course, but fortunately it's not all recycled, and we do get some new stuff here, which is nice to see. The biggest points here is a new costume for Ardyn, or some new assets for him, and also seeing Insomnia during the day is just fantastic. It's a shame we couldn't get it in the main game, but it's great to see Insomnia during the day finally. There are some assets when you're actually in Insomnia in the forms of enemies that are just way, way, way too overused, but because you're not dealing with it for too long, it is, I guess, is excusable for a piece of DLC. Looking at the gameplay, it is pretty fun, if not a little bit repetitive. The gameplay has you as the villain, Ardyn, of course, and your powers kind of increase as he descends further and further into madness. And it actually gets to a point where his madness tips over, and he starts kind of looking at things like a game, really. So it kind of has this gamified feel to it. Of course, we are playing a game, but there's a point scoring system, and it kind of feels like a game, like Ardyn is treating it like a game. And the abilities that he unlocks are pretty godlike as well. So you do feel like a really badass, powerful villain, and you're really not afraid to wield your power around. And it was actually pretty fun to play from that perspective. They also added a bit of a costume system where you can change the hat of Ardyn during this DLC, and it is pretty fun, although I wish they had gone a little bit more over the top with it and added some really silly helmets, or even some really cool looking ones in there. But otherwise it is a nice little treat, and I didn't expect it. So a point on replayability. Myself personally, now that I've gone through and I got all the collectibles in the game and did the extra mode, I don't feel like I really have much want to go back to this DLC. Maybe I will in the future, but I feel like it's like a kind of a once playthrough type of thing. So I personally don't see there's much replayability here. So with all that in mind, I do think this DLC is worth it. I think the team actually did put quite a bit of effort into this DLC, and especially when you look at the voice acting and the new assets they have added to it, I think they did put quite a bit of love and effort into it, and I am completely fine with paying this price. Even if we just consider, like the point I made before, the relation to, say, a movie and how much that would cost. Of course, different regions are going to have different pricings for things, but for me personally, I definitely felt like this was worth it, and felt like it was a pretty good send-off to the Final Fantasy 15 DLC episodes. So, I think I made a video that was probably about 8 minutes too long, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it and you could make a decision of whether or not you're going to buy it. If you still end up being that person that doesn't want to buy it, that's fine. You can check out my full playthrough on the channel, and I'll be adding other content related to episode Ardyn here as well, so that's perfectly fine. But I'd like to know what you think. Are you going to pick up the game? Have you picked up the game? Are you enjoying it? Do you think it's a complete ripoff? Let me know down below. Just try, if you can, keep the vitriol to a minimum in the comments. I myself am not Square Enix, and they don't read these comments, so spitting fire at them in the comment section isn't really going to help too much. But yeah, let's have a chat about what you feel about the DLC. Anyway, if this video did help you make a decision about the game, then please leave a thumbs up. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave them down below. And if you haven't subscribed already, then please do so. This has been Lemon Eating Cow. Moo.